My name is Barrett Wilson, 67 years old and a retired police detective. Tonight was supposed to be perfect, celebrating my daughter Amanda's big promotion at Le Chateau, this fancy French restaurant downtown. I was beaming with pride all evening. Then something strange happened. After Amanda and her husband Thomas left early, a waiter approached my table, his face pale with worry. He leaned in close and whispered, "Sir, be careful. Don't drink your juice." I saw something disturbing. My blood ran cold instantly. Before I continue this shocking story that changed my family forever, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button if you want to hear how a simple celebration turned into a nightmare that almost cost 2 lives. Amanda is my only daughter, 32 years old, and the light of my life since the day she was born. Her mother passed away when she was just 16, making our bond even stronger through those difficult teenage years. I raised her alone, watching her grow from a grief-stricken girl into a determined young woman who put herself through college and built an impressive career in finance. This dinner was to celebrate her promotion to vice president at Morgan Stanley, a prestigious position she had worked tirelessly to achieve. I had never been prouder. Despite being retired for 7 years now, I dipped into my savings to make a reservation at Le Chateau, the most exclusive French restaurant in the city. Nothing but the best for my little girl. Thomas Jenkins, her husband of 5 years, joined us for the celebration. When Amanda first introduced him to me, I thought he seemed like a decent man. Successful insurance executive, well-spoken, and he appeared to adore Amanda. They made a handsome couple in their wedding photos, which still sit on my mantle at home. But over the years, small things began to trouble me about Thomas. The way he would answer questions directed at Amanda, how he would guide her with his hand on the small of her back, not like a loving gesture but almost like steering a child. The manner in which he checked her phone when it chimed with messages. All subtle things that my detective instincts flagged, but nothing concrete enough to justify my growing unease. When we arrived at Le Chateau that evening, Thomas made a show of knowing the maître d' by name. He ordered an expensive bottle of Bordeaux without consulting the wine list, clearly trying to impress me with his sophistication. The restaurant was everything you would expect for $300 per person. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, waiters in tailored suits moving silently between tables. Piano music played softly in the background. "Only the best for our star," Thomas said, raising his glass to Amanda. She smiled, but I noticed it did not reach her eyes. Was she just tired from work, or was something else bothering her? When it came time to order, Thomas jumped in before Amanda could speak. "My wife will have the salmon tartare to start, then the duck confit. No sauce on that." She is watching her figure. He gave a small laugh while patting her hand. Amanda said nothing, just nodded in agreement. I ordered the escargot and filet mignon for myself, while Thomas chose the foie gras and lamb. Throughout the appetizers, I tried to engage Amanda about her promotion, asking about her new responsibilities and team. "Well, it is quite a step up," she began enthusiastically. "I will be managing the entire Eastern portfolio and leading a team of 12 analysts. The first project I want to tackle is restructuring how we approach emerging markets in Southeast Asia. There is this fascinating trend in Vietnam that I think we could leverage to increase returns by almost 14% over the next quarter." "That sounds very technical, darling," Thomas interrupted, placing his hand over hers. "I am sure your father does not want to be bored with all those financial details." "Actually, I find it fascinating," I countered, annoyed at his dismissal. Amanda always had a brilliant mind for strategy, even as a child. As our main courses arrived, I noticed something odd. Thomas moved Amanda's water glass and wine closer to his side of the table, almost protectively. When the waiter poured water, Thomas specified, "Just a little for my wife. She gets bloated easily." Amanda flushed with embarrassment. The conversation turned to their upcoming vacation plans, a trip to the Maldives that Thomas had apparently arranged as a surprise. "I have handled all the details," he explained. "Amanda works so hard, she does not need to worry about planning. I have even packed her suitcase already." Amanda smiled weakly. "Thomas thinks of everything." Halfway through the main course, Thomas checked his watch and frowned. "We should probably head out soon, dear. You have that 7 a.m. meeting tomorrow with the board." "I thought that was next week," Amanda replied, looking confused. "No, it was moved up. Richardson emailed this afternoon." "I saw it on your phone," Thomas answered smoothly. "We should go." Something did not add up. Why would Thomas be checking Amanda's work emails? And why did she not question this invasion of privacy? But before I could say anything, they were standing to leave. "Sorry to cut this short, Dad," Amanda said, hugging me goodbye. She felt thinner than I remembered, almost fragile in my arms. "Thank you for dinner. It was lovely." "Yes, thanks for the celebration," Thomas added, his smile not reaching his eyes. "Please, enjoy dessert on us. I already arranged to pay the bill." I watched them leave, Thomas guiding Amanda with his hand firmly on her back. Something about the way she moved seemed off, like she was slightly unsteady on her feet. I decided to stay for dessert and coffee, trying to shake the uneasy feeling their departure had left me with. I excused myself to use the restroom before dessert arrived. When I returned to the table, I noticed my orange juice had been refreshed, though I did not remember asking for more. I was about to take a sip when everything changed. A young waiter approached my table after Amanda and Thomas left. Not our regular server, but a younger man with dark hair and anxious eyes. His name tag read Marco. His hands trembled slightly as he leaned down, pretending to refill my water glass. "Sir," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the restaurant's ambient noise. "I should not be telling you this, but I saw something troubling." He glanced nervously toward the door. "Please, do not drink your juice. The man who was sitting here, your daughter's husband, I saw him put something in it when you went to the bathroom." My first reaction was disbelief. Surely this waiter was mistaken. Why would Thomas drug my drink? It made no sense. Yet the fear in Marco's eyes seemed genuine. "Are you certain?" I asked, my hand instinctively moving away from the glass. "That is a serious accusation." Marco nodded, swallowing hard. "I have worked here for 3 years. I notice things." He waited until you were gone, checked to make sure no one was watching, then dropped something from a small vial into your juice. It dissolved immediately. He stood up straight as another waiter passed by. "I could lose my job for telling you this, but I could not just stay quiet. My training as a detective kicked in. I needed to verify this claim before jumping to conclusions." "Is there security footage in this restaurant?" I asked. "Yes, sir," Marco replied. "In the main dining area and near the bar." "I need to speak with your manager immediately," I said, my voice calm despite the adrenaline now coursing through me. "And please, do not remove this glass." The manager, a slim woman named Sophia with a tight bun and perpetually arched eyebrows, initially refused my request to view the security footage. "That is against our privacy policy, sir. I cannot allow customers to access our security systems." "I understand your concern," I replied, showing her my retired detective badge that I still carried in my wallet. "But this is potentially a serious criminal matter. If you prefer, we can involve the active police department right now." Her expression changed at the sight of the badge. "Let me see what I can do," she said reluctantly. In a small office behind the kitchen, we reviewed the footage from the camera angled toward my table. The video quality was better than I expected for a restaurant. And there it was, clear as day. While I was away from the table, Thomas leaned over, quickly looked around, then removed something from his jacket pocket. He unscrewed what appeared to be a small vial and tipped its contents into my juice glass, stirring it briefly with a cocktail straw before returning to his seat. My blood ran cold as I watched. This was no mistake, no misunderstanding. The movement was deliberate and practiced, the actions of someone who had done this before. "I need to make a call," I told Sophia, "and I need that glass preserved exactly as it is." I stepped outside the office and dialed a number I had not called in months. Detective Frank Rivera had been my partner for the last 8 years of my career. We had stayed in touch after my retirement, occasionally meeting for beers to talk about old times and new cases. "Frank, it is Barrett," I said when he answered. "I need your help. I am at Le Chateau restaurant downtown, and I have reason to believe someone just attempted to poison me." There was a brief pause. "Are you okay? Have you consumed anything suspicious?" "No. I was warned before I drank it. There is video evidence, and the drink is preserved." "This is not a false alarm, Frank. It was my son-in-law. Stay put. Do not touch anything. I will be there in 15 minutes with a team." While waiting, I sat at my table again, staring at the juice glass that potentially contained enough of whatever substance to harm or kill me. My mind raced through possibilities. Why would Thomas want me dead? What could he possibly gain? And most importantly, if he was willing to do this to me, was Amanda safe? The restaurant had mostly emptied by the time Frank arrived with 2 uniformed officers and a crime scene technician. They worked efficiently, taking statements from Marco, the manager, and me, while securing the juice glass as evidence. "We will rush this to the lab tonight," Frank assured me, watching as the technician carefully bagged the glass. "But Barrett, you need to tell me everything you know about this son-in-law of yours." I shared my observations about Thomas's controlling behavior, how he spoke for Amanda, monitored her communications, and the strange way he had rushed her out of the restaurant. "Something has not been right with Amanda lately," I admitted. "She has lost weight, seems distracted, occasionally confused. I attributed it to work stress, but now I am wondering if there is more to it." Frank nodded grimly. "I remember cases like this from when we worked together. The Harriman case back in 2009. The husband slowly poisoning his wife for the insurance money. The memory hit me hard. Dorothy Harriman suffering from unexplained symptoms for months before a vigilant nurse became suspicious. By then, she had already sustained permanent liver damage. Her husband had been administering small doses of arsenic in her evening tea. "I need to call Amanda," I said, pulling out my phone. "Wait," Frank cautioned. "If Thomas is really up to something, tipping him off could make things worse. Let us get the toxicology results first, establish what we are dealing with." I knew he was right, but the thought of my daughter potentially in danger was unbearable. "How long will the lab take?" "For a rush job like this, maybe 4 to 6 hours. I will put my best person on it." Frank had a patrol car take me home, promising to call the moment they had results. I spent the night pacing my living room, too wired to sleep. Around 3 in the morning, I broke down and started researching Thomas Jenkins online, something I should have done years ago. What I found disturbed me deeply. Thomas had been married once before Amanda, a fact he had never mentioned. His first wife, Catherine Lowell Jenkins, had died 8 years ago at the age of 30 from what was reported as kidney failure. There was little information about the circumstances, but the timing aligned perfectly. Thomas had met Amanda just 6 months after Catherine's death. Digging deeper into public records, I discovered something else concerning. Despite his appearance of wealth, Thomas was carrying significant debt. Multiple mortgages on their house, maxed-out credit cards, and a tax lien filed the previous year. How was he financing their lavish lifestyle and upcoming Maldives vacation? Something did not add up. By dawn, my suspicions had crystallized into a terrible theory. But I needed evidence to confirm it, and to convince Amanda if necessary. I could only pray the lab results would provide it, and that I was not already too late to protect my daughter. Frank called at 7:15 the next morning. "Barrett, we need to talk. Can you come down to the station?" The gravity in his voice told me everything I needed to know. "They found something, did not they?" "Yes. Be here in an hour." I showered quickly, my mind racing. The drive to the police station felt surreal, like I was heading to someone else's nightmare. The familiar building brought back memories of countless cases, victims, perpetrators. Never did I imagine my own family would be involved in such a scenario. Frank met me in the conference room rather than his office, a sign this was now an official investigation. A folder sat on the table between us. "The lab results came back," he said without preamble. "Your juice contained ethylene glycol." "Antifreeze," I said, the implications hitting me like a physical blow. Ethylene glycol was a common choice for poisoners, sweet taste, readily available, and devastating to the kidneys and nervous system. "A significant amount," Frank confirmed. "Enough to cause serious damage, possibly fatal depending on how much you consumed. Whoever did this was not taking chances." "It was Thomas," I said with certainty. "The security footage clearly shows him adding something to my drink." Frank nodded grimly. "Based on the evidence, we have opened an official investigation into Thomas Jenkins for attempted murder." He slid the folder toward me. "We ran a background check. There are some things you should see." Inside were printouts similar to what I had found in my own late-night research, but with additional details only accessible to active law enforcement. Thomas's first wife had indeed died of kidney failure, but there had been a preliminary investigation that was ultimately dropped due to inconclusive evidence. The medical examiner had noted some unusual findings, but could not definitively rule out natural causes. There was suspicion, Frank explained, but nothing concrete enough to pursue charges. Classic antifreeze poisoning can mimic natural kidney failure if administered slowly over time. What about their finances? I asked. Your son-in-law is in serious financial trouble. Heavy gambling debts, failed investments, credit card fraud under investigation. On paper, he should not be able to afford their lifestyle. I rubbed my temples, trying to process this information. What about Amanda? We need to check on her. We need to proceed carefully, Frank cautioned. If he is poisoning her too, confronting him directly could escalate the situation. Has Amanda shown any symptoms that might indicate poisoning? Confusion, nausea, slurred speech, dizziness? The question sent a chill through me as I recalled our dinner. Amanda's apparent confusion about her meeting schedule, her unsteadiness when leaving the restaurant, the weight loss I had noticed. Yes, I admitted, all of those things. I attributed them to work stress or maybe too much wine. Frank's expression darkened. We need to check her medical records. If she has been seen by a doctor recently, there might be test results that could help us. But we will need her consent or a warrant. What about life insurance? I asked, remembering the Harriman case. That was the motive. In similar cases we worked. Frank nodded. We are looking into it. If Amanda has a substantial policy with Thomas as beneficiary, that could establish motive. I thought back to when my wife died. She had left a significant inheritance to Amanda, placed in a trust that became fully accessible when Amanda turned 30. That had been 2 years ago. $2 million. Plus our family home that Amanda had grown up in, which she sold after marrying Thomas. Did he know about this money? Did he have access to it? Amanda inherited money from her mother, I told Frank. A substantial amount when she turned 30. That could be our motive, Frank replied. If Thomas has been burning through that money with his gambling and is now looking for more, or if there are insurance policies we do not know about yet. The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture too horrifying to contemplate. My son-in-law was not just trying to murder me, he was likely slowly killing my daughter as well. So what do we do now? I asked. First, we continue building the case. The juice sample gives us enough to investigate, but we need more to make charges stick. Second, we need to find a way to check on Amanda without alerting Thomas. Frank leaned forward. Barrett, I know this is personal for you, but you need to follow my lead on this. No cowboy stuff. If Thomas realizes we are onto him, he might accelerate his plans or disappear with Amanda. I nodded, though everything in me wanted to confront Thomas immediately. I understand. Good. Now, I need you to think like the detective you were. When is the next time Amanda would normally see you? Any regular meetups or calls? We usually talk on Sunday afternoons. She calls me after Thomas goes golfing. Too long to wait, Frank mused. What about reaching out about something innocent? Something that would not raise suspicion? I could ask about the details for the Maldives trip. Offer to drive them to the airport or watch their house. That might work. Make the call from here so we can record it. Just keep it casual. See if you can speak to Amanda alone. The call went to voicemail. I left a message asking Amanda to call me back about the trip details, trying to keep my voice normal despite the circumstances. While waiting, Frank briefed me on their next steps. They would obtain warrants for Thomas and Amanda's financial records, check for life insurance policies, and quietly interview Amanda's doctor if they could identify who it was. We also need to look deeper into Catherine Lowell Jenkins's death, Frank added. If there was suspicion before, we might find something now that we have this new evidence of Thomas's behavior. 2 hours later, Amanda returned my call. Her voice sounded tired, slightly slurred. Hi, Dad. Sorry I missed you earlier. What did you need to know about our trip? I fought to keep my tone casual. Just wondering when you are leaving and how long you will be gone. Thought I might check on your house. Bring in the mail. Oh, that is so thoughtful. We leave on Tuesday. Thomas says we will be gone for 2 weeks. She paused, and I heard Thomas's voice in the background. Thomas says his brother will be checking the house, so you do not need to worry about it. I did not know Thomas had a brother, I said, genuinely surprised. There was a moment of confusion in her voice. Oh, right, I meant his cousin. Sorry, I have been so fuzzy lately. Probably just tired from work. The slip confirmed my fears. Amanda was experiencing confusion, a common symptom of ethylene glycol poisoning. I needed to see her in person, to find some way to get her away from Thomas. How about breakfast tomorrow? I suggested. Just you and me, before work. For old time's sake, that diner you love near your office. Another pause. More muffled conversation. Thomas says I should rest before the trip. Maybe when we get back? Just a quick coffee, I pressed. 20 minutes. I have something I want to give you before your trip. A small gift. Well, she hesitated. I guess I could meet you for 15 minutes. The usual place at 7:30? Perfect. See you then, sweetheart. After hanging up, Frank nodded approvingly. Good work. We will have plainclothes officers at the diner. If you can convince her to come to the hospital for tests, even better. And if she will not? Frank's expression was grim. Then we keep building our case. But Barrett, based on what we now know and her symptoms, time may not be on our side. The thought kept me awake all night. My daughter was being poisoned by the man who had vowed to love and protect her, and she had no idea. Tomorrow might be my only chance to save her life, and I had no idea if she would believe me. The weight of this knowledge was almost unbearable as I waited for morning to come. The corner cafe looked the same as always. A cozy neighborhood diner where Amanda and I had shared countless breakfast meetings over the years. I arrived 30 minutes early, coordinating with the plainclothes officers Frank had positioned inside and outside the restaurant. Detective Rivera himself sat at the counter, posing as a regular customer reading the morning paper. At 7:25, Amanda arrived. My heart clenched at the sight of her. In just the few days since our dinner, she looked noticeably worse. Her clothes hung loosely on her frame. Her complexion was pallid, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. She moved slowly, carefully, as if afraid she might lose her balance. "Dad," she said with a tired smile, sliding into the booth across from me. "This is a nice surprise." "You look tired, sweetheart," I said, taking her hands across the table. They felt cold, and I noticed a slight tremor. "Is everything okay?" "Just work stress," she replied automatically. "And planning for this trip, Thomas wants everything to be perfect." I ordered coffee for both of us, noting how Amanda stared at the menu as if she was having trouble focusing on the words. "Have you been to see a doctor about this tiredness?" I asked casually. "Thomas took me to someone last week," she said. "They ran some tests, said I might have a virus or something, prescribed rest and fluids before our trip." "Which doctor was this?" I pressed gently. Amanda frowned slightly. "Someone Thomas knows. I cannot remember the name right now. My brain has been so foggy lately." I took a deep breath, knowing I needed to proceed carefully. "Amanda, I need to ask you something important. Has Thomas been preparing food or drinks for you specially? Things he says will help you feel better." Her expression changed, growing defensive. "Why would you ask that? Thomas takes good care of me." "I am sure he does," I said soothingly. "I am just concerned about how tired you look." "He makes me special smoothies every morning," she admitted after a moment, "with supplements for energy, and he measures my juice at night, says the antioxidants will help me sleep. He is very health-conscious. Special drinks prepared only by Thomas." The confirmation made my stomach turn. "Amanda, I think you should go to the hospital for some tests. Today. Now, actually. I can take you." "What?" "No, that is ridiculous. I have meetings today, and we are leaving for vacation in a few days." She shook her head, then winced as if the movement hurt. "Why are you being so strange, Dad?" I knew I had to tell her the truth, but before I could speak, the cafe door opened, and Thomas walked in. His eyes locked on our table immediately, his expression darkening when he saw my hands holding Amanda's. This was not part of the plan. He was supposed to be at work. "Amanda," he said sharply, approaching our table, "I thought you were heading to the office early today." "Thomas," she said, looking startled. "I told you I was having coffee with Dad first." "No, you did not." His tone was certain, making her doubt herself. He turned to me with a cold smile. "Barrett, what a surprise. Trying to squeeze in another goodbye before our trip?" "Just catching up," I replied evenly, noting how Frank had subtly shifted position at the counter, his hand moving toward his concealed weapon. "Amanda was just telling me about the doctor you took her to last week. What was his name again? I might want to see him myself." Thomas's expression flickered momentarily before he composed himself. "Dr. Richardson. But he is not taking new patients, unfortunately." I filed away the name, certain Frank would check it out and probably find it was fictional. That is too bad. So what did he say was wrong with Amanda? She seems quite unwell. Just exhaustion, Thomas replied smoothly, placing a possessive hand on Amanda's shoulder. Nothing that our vacation will not fix. Speaking of which, we should get going, dear. We have that meeting with the travel agent to finalize details. I thought everything was already arranged, I said, remembering his earlier claim that he had handled all the details. Thomas's eyes hardened. Final confirmations. Ready, Amanda? She looked confused again, glancing between us. I thought the travel agent meeting was tomorrow. It was moved up, Thomas insisted, his grip on her shoulder tightening visibly. We discussed this at breakfast. I could see the doubt in Amanda's eyes, the way she second-guessed her own memory. Classic gaslighting, made more effective by the cognitive impairment the poison was likely causing. Actually, I said, making a split-second decision, I need to talk to Amanda privately about a family matter. It will only take 5 minutes. Anything you need to say to my wife, you can say in front of me, Thomas countered, his friendly facade slipping. It is about her mother's anniversary, I lied smoothly. A personal tradition we have. Amanda looked up at Thomas. 5 minutes, honey. Please? I could see the calculations happening behind his eyes. Making a scene would draw attention, forcing Amanda to leave would look controlling. Finally, he nodded stiffly. 5 minutes. I will wait in the car. As soon as he left, I leaned forward, speaking urgently. Amanda, listen to me carefully. I do not have time to explain everything, but you are in danger. Thomas is not who you think he is. Her expression hardened. Not this again, Dad. I know you have never fully approved of him, but this is getting old. This is not about approval, I insisted. At dinner the other night, he put poison in my drink. Ethylene glycol, antifreeze. There is security camera footage. The police are investigating. She stared at me in shock. That is insane. Why would he do that? I think he is doing the same to you, I continued quickly, knowing Thomas would not give me much time. The symptoms you are having, confusion, fatigue, the tremors in your hands. I can see right now, they are all consistent with antifreeze poisoning. It can be fatal, Amanda. You need medical help immediately. She pulled her hands away, her eyes filling with tears. I cannot believe you would make up something so horrible. Thomas loves me. He takes care of me. Has he increased your life insurance recently? I asked, remembering one of the red flags from our past cases. Made any changes to your will or financial arrangements? Something flickered in her eyes. How did you know about the insurance? That was just standard financial planning. Thomas said everyone does it before international travel. Amanda, please, I begged. Come with me to the hospital right now, just for tests. If I am wrong, I will never interfere in your marriage again. She stood up shakily, her expression torn between anger and fear. I need to go. Thomas is waiting. At least take this, I said, pressing a business card into her hand. Detective Frank Rivera, my old partner. Call him if you need help. Any time, day or night. She hesitated, then slipped the card into her pocket just as Thomas re-entered the cafe, his patience clearly expired. Time to go, Amanda, he said firmly. I watched helplessly as he guided her out, his hand firmly on her back in that controlling manner I had come to recognize. Through the window, I could see him opening the passenger door for her, his movements solicitous while his expression remained cold. Detective Rivera slid into the booth across from me as they drove away. That did not go as planned, he observed. No, I agreed grimly. But I planted the seed of doubt. Did you hear the part about the life insurance? Frank nodded. Already on it. We will check every policy taken out in her name. Did you see how he reacted when you mentioned her doctor? There is no way that name is real. We need to move faster, I urged. She is getting worse. The symptoms are progressing. I know, Frank assured me. We have got the lab tests from your juice. We are working on warrants for their home and financial records. But Barrett, we need more evidence before we can forcibly separate them or arrest him. Unless she agrees to testing, our hands are tied. She mentioned they are meeting a travel agent today. Can we track them? Find out where they are going? We will put a surveillance team on them, Frank promised. In the meantime, go home and try to rest. You cannot help Amanda if you run yourself into the ground. But rest was impossible. Instead, I spent the day calling Amanda's office, learning she had taken a leave of absence due to health issues. I searched for information about their Maldives trip, discovering it was to a remote island resort with limited medical facilities, a perfect place for a medical emergency to turn fatal without raising suspicion. By evening, Frank called with updates. We confirmed two things. First, there is no Dr. Richardson matching the description in the tri-state area. Second, Thomas increased Amanda's life insurance policy to $5 million 3 weeks ago, with himself as the sole beneficiary. The policy specifically covers death during international travel. That is it, I said. That is our motive. He is planning to kill her during this trip. We are building the case, Frank agreed. But we still do not have enough for an arrest. They leave in 3 days, Frank. We are out of time. There was a long pause. There is one option we have not discussed. You could try to get evidence directly. Your background gives you more leeway than an ordinary civilian. He was suggesting I conduct my own surveillance, potentially breaking some rules in the process. It was risky from a legal standpoint, but if it saved Amanda, any consequence would be worth it. Tell me what you are thinking, I said. Thomas might be getting the poison from somewhere, or meeting with someone. If you could document that, it might give us what we need for warrants or an arrest. It was a long shot, but it was all we had. I will see what I can find out. The next 24 hours became a blur of surveillance and investigation. I followed Thomas when he left their house, watching from a distance as he met with a man in a pharmacy parking lot, exchanging a small package for cash. I photographed the transaction with the telephoto lens I had kept from my detective days, immediately sending the images to Frank. The man was identified as a lab technician with access to various chemicals, with a history of selling prescription drugs on the side. It was another piece of the puzzle, but still not definitive proof of Thomas's plan for Amanda. With time running out before their scheduled departure, I made a desperate decision. While Thomas was at work and Amanda was at a spa appointment he had arranged, I used my old lockpicking skills to enter their home. I knew it was illegal, that any evidence I found might be inadmissible, but Amanda's life was at stake. In their kitchen, I discovered what I was looking for: a collection of unmarked bottles in the refrigerator, containing what appeared to be fruit juices. Using test strips Frank had provided, designed to detect ethylene glycol, I tested each container. 3 showed positive results, including a half-empty bottle labeled Amanda's nighttime wellness juice. I photographed everything, careful not to disturb the evidence, then left as silently as I had entered. The information went straight to Frank, who promised to expedite the warrant process based on what I had found, combined with the evidence from my own poisoning and the suspicious life insurance policy. We should have enough for a search warrant by tomorrow morning, Frank assured me. If we find what you saw, we can make an arrest before they leave for their trip. But as I would soon learn, tomorrow would be too late. My phone rang at 9:15 that evening. The caller ID showed Amanda's number, sending a surge of hope through me. Amanda? Are you okay? There was labored breathing on the other end, then my daughter's voice, weak and frightened. Dad, I think you might be right about Thomas. I found something strange in his office. Insurance papers with my name, and bottles, chemicals that should not be there. My heart raced. Where are you now? Is Thomas there? No, she whispered. He went out. Said he had a business meeting. But I heard him on the phone earlier, talking about moving up our departure. We are leaving tomorrow morning now, not Tuesday. He was accelerating his timeline. We were out of time. Amanda, listen to me. You need to get out of that house right now. Do not take anything. Do not leave a note. Just leave. I will pick you up. Where can I meet you? The park 2 blocks south, she managed. By the fountain. I do not feel well, Dad. Everything is spinning. I am on my way. Stay on the phone with me if you can. I grabbed my car keys and was out the door in seconds, alerting Frank as I drove. He promised to send officers to the park immediately. It took me 12 agonizing minutes to reach the park, during which Amanda's responses grew increasingly slurred and disjointed. When I arrived, I found her slumped on a bench near the fountain, barely conscious. Her skin was clammy, her breathing shallow. Amanda, I called, rushing to her side. I am here now. Help is coming. Her eyes fluttered open, struggling to focus on my face. Dad, I feel so sick. Thomas, he said it was just vitamins and supplements. But I saw bottles with skull symbols in his desk. When I asked, He got so angry. "Do not talk now," I soothed, checking her pulse. It was rapid and irregular. "Save your strength." I heard sirens approaching, relief flooding through me at the sound. But then headlights swept across the park entrance, and a car screeched to a halt. Thomas leapt out, his face contorted with rage. "Get away from my wife," he shouted, striding toward us. "Amanda, what are you doing? You need to be resting at home." "Stay back," I warned, positioning myself between Thomas and Amanda. "The police are on their way." "Police?" Thomas laughed coldly. "For what? For a concerned husband looking for his sick wife? You have lost your mind, old man." He turned his attention to Amanda. "Honey, your father is confused. Come home with me now." Amanda shrank back against the bench. "No," she whispered. "I saw what you had in your office, Thomas. The chemicals, the insurance papers." Thomas's expression darkened. "You have been snooping in my private things? That is disappointing, Amanda. Very disappointing. You know how it upsets me when you invade my privacy." "Do not listen to him, Amanda," I urged. "He has been poisoning you, just like he tried to poison me at the restaurant." Thomas lunged forward suddenly, grabbing for Amanda's arm. "Enough of this nonsense. We are going home now." I moved to block him, my old training taking over despite my age. "Touch her again, and I will drop you where you stand." Thomas's eyes narrowed, calculating. He was younger, stronger, but I had decades of experience and the motivation of protecting my child. For a moment, we were at an impasse. Then the police cruiser pulled up, lights flashing. Thomas immediately shifted his demeanor, his face arranging itself into a mask of concern. "Oh, thank God you are here, officers. My wife is very ill, and my father-in-law is preventing me from taking her to get medical attention." It was a clever play, but Frank had briefed the responding officers thoroughly. They approached cautiously, one of them speaking into his radio to expedite the ambulance. "Mr. Jenkins," the older officer said, "we need you to step away from your wife, sir." "This is ridiculous," Thomas protested. "She needs medical attention. She has been unwell." "Yes, she does need medical attention," the officer agreed. "An ambulance is on the way, and we have some questions for you about certain substances found in your home." Thomas's facade cracked slightly. "You searched my house? That is illegal. You had no right." "We had a warrant, sir," the officer replied calmly, "based on evidence from multiple sources, including test results from a drink you tampered with at Le Chateau restaurant." As if on cue, Detective Rivera arrived, followed closely by an ambulance. The paramedics immediately attended to Amanda, starting an IV and preparing her for transport. "Thomas Jenkins," Frank said formally, "you are under arrest for the attempted murder of Barrett Wilson and suspected poisoning of Amanda Jenkins. You have the right to remain silent." Thomas's face contorted with rage as the officers handcuffed him. "This is a setup. She is just sick. Tell them, Amanda, tell them I have been taking care of you." But Amanda was being loaded into the ambulance, an oxygen mask on her face. I moved to go with her, but Frank caught my arm. "The paramedics need space to work," he said gently. "Follow in your car. I will handle things here." At the hospital, doctors immediately began treatment for ethylene glycol poisoning, starting Amanda on Somapizole to block the toxic metabolites and preparing for possible dialysis. Tests confirmed what we already suspected. She had been receiving small doses of antifreeze over several weeks, gradually building up in her system. If she had gone on that trip, the emergency room doctor told me gravely, she likely would not have survived another week. The damage to her kidneys is already significant. As Amanda received treatment, Frank updated me on their findings. The search of Thomas and Amanda's home had revealed a hidden collection of ethylene glycol, various medications, and detailed notes on dosages and symptoms. They had also found records of Thomas's gambling debts, totaling nearly $1 million, and documentation of his systematic draining of Amanda's inheritance over the past 2 years. Most damning of all, they discovered a journal in which Thomas had documented his first wife's declining health in clinical, detached language, including notes on how to improve his methods next time. "He is a textbook psychopath," Frank explained. "Charming, manipulative, and completely without empathy. The evidence we have now is overwhelming. He will go away for a very long time." While this was a relief, my primary concern remained Amanda's recovery. For 3 days, I kept vigil at her hospital bedside, watching as the medical team fought to reverse the damage the poison had done to her system. On the 4th day, she finally regained full consciousness. Her first words to me were, "I should have listened to you sooner." "No," I said firmly, taking her hand. "This is not your fault. Thomas was skilled at manipulation. He chose you because you are trusting and kind." "I still cannot believe it," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "He was planning to kill me. He nearly killed you. How did I not see what he really was?" "People like Thomas are masters at hiding their true nature," I explained gently, "and he was drugging you, clouding your judgment." She turned her face away. "I feel so stupid." "You are not stupid, Amanda. You are a victim of a calculated predator, but you are also a survivor. You found the strength to call me, to leave the house. You saved yourself." Over the following days, as Amanda's physical condition stabilized, we learned more about the extent of Thomas's crimes. The police had reopened the investigation into his first wife's death and found compelling evidence that he had murdered her using the same method. There were also indications of 2 previous girlfriends who had experienced mysterious health problems while dating him, though both had fortunately ended the relationships before suffering permanent damage. When Amanda was strong enough, she provided a formal statement to the police, detailing the controlling behaviors that had escalated over their marriage, the isolation from friends and family, and the mysterious health supplements Thomas had insisted she take daily. "I think part of me knew something was wrong," she admitted during one of our quiet conversations in her hospital room. "There were so many red flags, but he always had explanations for everything. And when I did question things, he would make me doubt my own memory, my own sanity. That is what abusers do," I told her. "They isolate you, control you, and make you question your own perceptions. It is not a reflection on you. It could happen to anyone." As Amanda's kidney function improved, and the fog of the poison cleared from her system, she began to process the emotional trauma of what had happened. The betrayal by someone she had loved and trusted completely was almost harder to recover from than the physical poisoning. "How do I ever trust anyone again?" she asked one evening, her voice small and broken. "Slowly," I answered honestly, "with time. And by remembering that while there are monsters like Thomas in the world, there are also people like Marco the waiter, who risk themselves to help strangers. The world has both, and we cannot let the monsters make us forget the good." Thomas remained in custody, denied bail due to the severity of the charges and the risk of flight. His case would eventually go to trial, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. Both Amanda and I would have to testify, reliving the nightmare in court, but we would face it together. For now, though, our focus was on healing, on rebuilding what Thomas had tried to destroy. And as I watched my daughter grow stronger each day, I knew that despite his best efforts, he had failed. We had survived. 3 weeks after her hospitalization, Amanda was released with instructions for follow-up care and monitoring of her kidney function. The doctors were cautiously optimistic about her long-term prognosis, though they warned there might be lingering effects from the poisoning. "You are welcome to stay with me while you recover," I offered as I drove her home from the hospital. "Thanks, Dad," she said, looking out the window. "But I need to go back to my house, at least to pack some things and figure out what to do next." I understood her need to reclaim some control over her life, but I worried about the emotional impact of returning to the home she had shared with Thomas. "I will come with you," I said. "You should not have to face that alone." The house, an elegant colonial in an upscale neighborhood, felt cold and unwelcoming as we entered. Crime scene tape still marked Thomas's home office, which remained sealed as evidence. "It is strange," Amanda said, looking around the immaculate living room. "Nothing looks different, but everything feels different, like I am seeing it all clearly for the first time." She moved through the house slowly, pausing occasionally to examine objects, photographs, souvenirs from trips they had taken together. In their bedroom, she sat on the edge of the bed, running her fingers over the duvet. "He brought me tea in this bed when I was feeling sick," she said quietly. "Stood right there and watched me drink it, knowing what he had put in it. How can someone do that, Dad? How can anyone be that cruel?" I sat beside her, putting my arm around her shoulders. "Some people are empty inside, Amanda. They mimic emotions they do not actually feel. Thomas saw people as objects to be used, not as human beings to care about." She nodded, wiping away tears. "I keep going over everything in my head, All the little warning signs I missed or explained away. The way he gradually took control of our finances. How he discouraged me from spending time with my friends until eventually I did not see them at all. The constant checking of my phone, always explained as concern for my well-being. The pattern is clear in hindsight, I acknowledged. But abusers are skilled at making each step seem reasonable, even loving. We spent the afternoon packing her essential belongings, the items that held personal significance and had not been tainted by association with Thomas. Clothes, books, jewelry from before their marriage, photographs from her childhood and college years. The rest, she decided, could be dealt with later. As we were loading the last boxes into my car, Amanda's phone rang. The caller ID showed an unfamiliar number. She answered hesitantly, putting it on speaker. "Amanda?" "It is Darren, Thomas's lawyer." The voice was smooth, professional. "I am reaching out because Thomas asked me to convey a message. He wants you to know that he loves you very much, and there has been a terrible misunderstanding. He has never done anything to hurt you and is deeply concerned about your well-being." Amanda's hand trembled, her face paling. I reached for the phone, but she held up a finger, signaling me to wait. "Is that all?" she asked, her voice remarkably steady. "He hopes you will not testify against him," the lawyer continued. "He believes that with therapy, you two can work through this difficult time and save your marriage. He only wants what is best for you, Amanda." I could see the conflict in Amanda's eyes, the momentary doubt. Thomas's manipulation was so ingrained that even now, even knowing what we knew, his words still had power. "Tell Thomas," she said finally, her voice growing stronger with each word, "that I have seen the evidence. I have seen his journal about his first wife. I have seen the bottles of antifreeze and the notes he kept about my symptoms. Tell him I know exactly what he did, and I will be testifying against him, and tell him that I am not afraid of him anymore." She ended the call and let out a shaky breath. He really thought he could still control me, even from jail. "That was incredible," I said, filled with pride at her strength. "You stood up to him." "It still hurts," she admitted. "Part of me still wants to believe there is an explanation, that the man I loved for 5 years was not a complete fiction. Is that crazy?" "No," I assured her. "It is human. You are mourning not just the end of your marriage, but the loss of who you thought he was, who you thought you were together. That takes time." We finished loading the car and left the house behind, Amanda looking back only once as we pulled away from the curb. "I do not think I will keep this place," she said quietly. "Too many ghosts." The next few weeks brought new challenges. Thomas's lawyer filed motions to suppress evidence, claiming the search warrant had been obtained improperly. There were preliminary hearings where Amanda had to face Thomas across the courtroom, his expression alternating between wounded innocence and cold calculation. The prosecutor, a determined woman named Valerie Kemp, met with us regularly to prepare for trial. "The evidence is strong," she assured us. "The journal alone is incredibly damning, not to mention the chemical evidence and financial paper trail. But Amanda's testimony will be crucial in establishing the pattern of control and abuse." Amanda threw herself into the preparation, determined to see justice done not just for herself, but for Catherine, Thomas's first wife. "She never got justice," Amanda said. "No one believed she was murdered. I need to speak for her, too." The stress took its toll. Amanda experienced nightmares, panic attacks, and moments of overwhelming guilt. "I keep thinking about the warning signs," she confessed during one particularly difficult evening. "What if I had realized sooner? What if I had left him before he tried to poison you? You could have died because of my blindness." "Stop," I said firmly. "Thomas is responsible for his actions, not you. And I did not die. I am right here, and so are you. We survived him." As the trial date approached, Thomas made one last desperate attempt to manipulate Amanda. He managed to have a friend deliver a letter to her, bypassing the no-contact order. The letter was full of apologies, declarations of love, and subtle threats disguised as concern for her well-being. "He is still trying to gaslight me," Amanda observed, handing the letter to Detective Rivera. "Telling me my memory is faulty due to stress, that I misunderstood what I saw in his office, that he only wanted to protect me from myself." "This is actually helpful to our case," Frank pointed out. "It shows his continued attempts at manipulation and control, and it violates the court order." The day the trial was set to begin, Amanda awoke with a calm determination I had not seen since before her marriage to Thomas. "I am ready," she told me over breakfast. Whatever happens, I am going to tell the truth. The whole truth about who he is and what he did. As we prepared to leave for the courthouse, the prosecutor called with unexpected news. Thomas had accepted a plea deal, guilty on all charges, in exchange for avoiding the death penalty in the reopened case of his first wife's murder. "He is not going to trial?" Amanda asked, her expression a mixture of relief and disappointment. "I do not have to testify?" "No," Valerie confirmed. "He will be sentenced to life without possibility of parole. You can make a victim impact statement at the sentencing if you wish, but you will not have to undergo cross-examination." After ending the call, Amanda sat quietly for several minutes, processing this turn of events. "I had prepared myself to face him," she said finally, "to look him in the eye while I told the world what he did." "Are you disappointed?" I asked. She considered this. A little, but mostly relieved, and glad that he will never be able to hurt anyone else. She looked up at me, her eyes clearer and more present than they had been in months. "It is really over, is not it?" "Yes," I assured her, taking her hand. "It is over. He cannot hurt you anymore." In the end, Amanda did choose to deliver a victim impact statement at Thomas's sentencing. She stood tall before the court, her voice unwavering as she described the psychological and physical abuse she had endured, the betrayal of trust, and the long road to recovery ahead of her. "I am not just speaking for myself today," she concluded. "I am speaking for Catherine Lowell, who did not survive Thomas's cruelty. I am speaking for every person who has been manipulated, controlled, and abused by someone who claimed to love them. There is life after this kind of trauma. There is hope, and there is healing." Thomas showed no emotion as the judge sentenced him to consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. As he was led from the courtroom, he looked at Amanda one last time, his eyes cold and empty. She held his gaze without flinching, refusing to be intimidated. Outside the courthouse, under a clear blue sky, Amanda took a deep breath. "I feel lighter," she said, "like I can finally start to put this behind me." "One day at a time," I reminded her. She nodded, linking her arm through mine. One day at a time. In the year following Thomas's sentencing, Amanda faced the challenging journey of rebuilding her life. The physical effects of the poisoning gradually subsided, though her kidney function remained slightly impaired, requiring ongoing medical monitoring. The emotional healing proved to be a longer, more complex process. "Some days I feel strong, like I have put it all behind me," she confided during one of our weekly dinners, now a sacred tradition for both of us. "And then something will trigger a memory, a moment of doubt, and it all comes flooding back." I watched my daughter navigate this difficult terrain with a mixture of heartache and pride. She worked with a trauma therapist specializing in survivors of intimate partner violence, slowly processing the layers of betrayal and manipulation she had endured. She sold the house she had shared with Thomas, using part of the proceeds to establish a foundation for education about coercive control and poisoning in relationships, a sadly more common phenomenon than most people realized. "I keep thinking about Marco," she said one evening as we walked along the riverfront near my home. "That young waiter who saved your life by speaking up. So many people would have stayed quiet, minded their own business. He showed remarkable courage," I agreed, "and excellent observation skills. I want to find him," Amanda decided, "to thank him properly." It took some effort, but we eventually located Marco, who had left the restaurant and was now in culinary school, pursuing his dream of becoming a chef. When Amanda reached out to him, he was initially hesitant, uncomfortable with being called a hero. "I just did what anyone should do," he insisted when we met him for coffee. "I saw something wrong and spoke up." "But that is exactly it," Amanda told him earnestly. "Not everyone does speak up. You saw something suspicious and you acted, even though it put your job at risk. You saved my father's life, and ultimately mine too." Marco shifted uncomfortably under the praise. "I am just glad you are both okay. When I heard about everything that happened afterward, what that man was doing to you, it was horrifying." "I want to help you finish culinary school," Amanda said, surprising both Marco and me. "As a thank you, and as a way to put something positive back into the world after all this darkness." Despite his initial protests, Marco eventually accepted Amanda's offer of a scholarship to complete his education, and over time, he became something of an extended family member to us, occasionally cooking elaborate meals at my home, where we would talk about his studies and future plans. 6 months after Thomas's sentencing, Amanda made another significant decision. "I am thinking of going back to my maiden name," she told me over Sunday brunch. "I do not want to carry his name anymore." "I think that sounds like a healthy step," I said. "Back to Amanda Wilson." She smiled, a genuine expression that reached her eyes, something that had become more frequent as the months passed. "It feels right, like reclaiming a piece of myself." The legal process of changing her name coincided with another milestone, her return to work. Rather than going back to her high-pressure finance position, Amanda decided on a career change, joining a nonprofit organization that worked with the justice system to support victims of domestic violence. "I understand what they are going through in a way I never could have before," she explained. "The self-doubt, the shame, the fear of not being believed. If I can use my experience to help even one person escape a situation like mine, it gives some meaning to what happened." Her work brought her into contact with other survivors, creating a community of understanding and support that proved invaluable to her healing process. She began speaking publicly about her experience, initially in small support group settings, and eventually at professional conferences for law enforcement, medical personnel, and victim advocates. The red flags seem so obvious in hindsight, she would tell these audiences. The isolation from friends and family, the control over finances, the gaslighting that made me doubt my own perceptions. But when you are in the middle of it, when it happens gradually and comes wrapped in declarations of love and concern, it is like the parable of the boiling frog. You do not realize the danger until it is almost too late. As Amanda grew stronger, finding purpose in her new work and identity, I too underwent a transformation. The nightmare we had endured had changed my perspective on retirement. Rather than filling my days with fishing trips and television, I began volunteering with a program that paired retired detectives with current law enforcement to review cold cases, particularly those involving suspected domestic homicides. "You have a unique perspective now," Frank pointed out when I joined the program he had helped establish. "Both professional expertise and personal experience. That combination can help identify cases where poisoning or other covert methods might have been overlooked." He was right. Within the first year, our cold case team helped reopen 3 investigations where spouses had died under circumstances initially ruled natural, but which showed patterns similar to what Thomas had done to his first wife. 2 resulted in convictions, bringing long-delayed justice to the victims' families. On the anniversary of Amanda's hospital discharge, we held a small gathering at my home, a celebration of survival and new beginnings. Detective Rivera came, as did Marco and several of Amanda's colleagues and new friends. Notably absent were any remnants of her life with Thomas, those relationships having largely dissolved when the truth about him emerged. "I want to make a toast," Amanda said, raising her glass. "To second chances and new beginnings, to speaking up when something seems wrong, to trusting our instincts, and most of all, to the family we choose and the strength we find within ourselves when we need it most." As glasses clinked and conversation flowed around us, Amanda took me aside. "I have been thinking a lot about what you did for me, Dad. How you never gave up, even when I pushed you away. Not everyone has someone like that in their corner." "That is what family does," I said simply. "We look out for each other." She smiled, but her expression remained serious. "I have been seeing someone," she admitted. "For a few months now. He is a prosecutor I met through work. His name is David." "Is it serious?" I asked, careful to keep my tone neutral despite the automatic concern that flared within me. "It might be heading that way," she said. "He is patient, kind. He understands what I have been through and does not push. But Dad, here is the thing. I want you to investigate him." I blinked in surprise. "Investigate him?" She nodded firmly. "Background check, financial history, previous relationships, the works. I trust my heart again, finally. But I also want to trust the facts. Will you do that for me?" "Of course I will," I promised, touched by her trust and impressed by her wisdom. "Whatever you need to feel safe." As it turned out, David Parker was exactly who he appeared to be, a dedicated public servant with a clean record, healthy finances, and positive references from former relationships. When I presented my findings to Amanda, she thanked me with tears in her eyes. "Now I can move forward without that shadow of doubt," she explained, "without wondering if I am missing something important again." 2 years after Thomas entered prison, Amanda and David became engaged. Their relationship progressed slowly, deliberately, with open communication about Amanda's past trauma and David's understanding of her need for autonomy and transparency. He became a welcomed addition to our small family circle, respectful of our bond, and supportive of Amanda's ongoing work with survivors. On a crisp fall evening, as Amanda and I sat on my back porch watching the sunset, she turned to me with a contemplative expression. "You know what I have learned through all of this?" she asked. "What is that, sweetheart?" "That true love is not about possession or control. It is about wanting someone to be safe, to be whole, to be their best self, even when that is difficult or painful." She reached for my hand, like what you did for me, even when I did not want to see the truth. "That is what love is," I agreed. "Protecting those we care about, even when it is hard, even when they might not thank us for it at the time." "I thank you now," she said softly. "Every day." As the last light faded from the sky, I reflected on our journey. From the terrifying moment when a young waiter whispered a warning about poisoned juice, through the darkness of discovering Thomas's true nature, to this peaceful evening with my daughter healthy and whole beside me. It had been a harrowing path, but we had emerged stronger, wiser, and with a deeper appreciation for the fragility and preciousness of life. The most important lesson I learned from our ordeal was simple but profound. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong, speak up even when it is difficult, and never underestimate the importance of paying attention to the small details that others might miss. Sometimes, as in our case, those details can be the difference between life and death. Have you ever had a gut feeling about someone that others dismissed? Did you speak up or stay silent? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story helped you recognize warning signs of controlling behavior, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my story today. And remember to always trust your instincts. They might just save a life, perhaps even your own.